Good evening. Hello. Hi, I'm Sharona. You are watching The Extra Point. We come to you every Friday night via the National Gridiron Network, www.nationalgridironnetwork.com. Be sure to jump on there and check out all the great articles and the other shows that are being produced there. A lot of good things going on. Getting ready to be, actually, I should say, it's NGSC Sports now. Because we have merged with TSRN and big things going on there. So a lot of good happenings going on. But we're going to talk some Tennessee Titans versus Atlanta Falcons in the third preseason preview show. Next week we're going to be doing something a little bit different. We're not going to be doing a Titans preseason, or really probably any preseason preview, because the fourth game is notorious for the starters are probably not going to be playing, if at all, playing very much. So we're going to do something a little bit different next week. I have not quite decided what we're going to do, but we will not be doing a Titans preview show. For those of you who are tired of hearing about the Titans, don't worry. We're not going to be doing that in the next segment, but we are going to do that tonight. They are playing the Atlanta Falcons. I think this is a very good game for the Titans. In a lot of ways, it's going to be a benchmark game for them where you can really see how far they've come along. Their first preseason game played in a monsoon before the home crowd at LP Field. Hard to really get anything out of that game. The conditions were truly horrendous. The Green Bay didn't even play Aaron Rodgers. They didn't play Eddie Lacy. So, I mean, it was not much of a barometer there. They did play the Saints. Drew Brees did not play. But they were going to face an Atlanta Falcons team that is going to play. Their starter, Matt Ryan, is expected to play, along with a lot of the other first-team offensive players. So I think that it's going to be a good test. Some young guys really competing in the secondary for spots. The Titans defense, the run defense, we've seen some improvement there. Their pass defense really sort of struggled against a very good Saints offense. Even though Drew Brees wasn't playing, Jimmy Graham, one of the premier players in the league, Brandon Cooks, rookie, but he is going to make waves in his first year, a very talented player. And then they've got some other really talented players. So they're going to face an Atlanta Falcons team that has very similar offensive firepower. And Julio Jones, I think, is probably, if not the best, one of the top three wide receivers in the National Football League. Steven Jackson, still a very good running back. Roddy White, nothing to be. I mean, Julio Jones is great. Roddy White is extremely good in his own right. Harry Douglas is good. They've got an exciting young tight end that we're going to talk about. So a lot of firepower on that Atlanta Falcons team. And I'm joined by Scott Carasik. You guys have seen him before. Really a great follow on Twitter, on any kind of social media. Writes for Draft Falcons, writes about the Atlanta Falcons for Bleacher Report. Scott, thanks once again for joining me. It's been a while since you and I have talked one-on-one. I'm really excited to hear some of your thoughts on this game. First of all, let's start with how long you expect your starters to play. What are your thoughts on that?
I think the most likely situation is Atlanta's going to play their guys a half and then probably a drive.
Okay, a little bit into the third quarter. That's about what I expect the Titans to do. I think that you'll see. I think that you'll see them. I'm going to get us going on Twitter. Let me do this real quick. All right. So I think that they'll play into the third quarter. I think a lot of it, too, depends on how well they're doing. You're not going to see their starters play very much in the fourth quarter. I mean, in the fourth preseason game. Jake Locker didn't play a whole lot in that monsoon, which was very good for him. You didn't need to see him on the field. Charlie Whitehurst dinged up. You're going to see a lot of Zach Mettenberger. You got to see a lot of him in the Saints game. I'm curious to see how they divide the reps up between those two guys. I think Jake Locker only played 1 quarter against the Saints. He'll definitely play the entire first half. It wouldn't surprise me if he didn't play halfway into the third quarter, too. So, it's going to be, again, a good measuring stick for this team. Scott, the Falcons had a very disappointing 2013 season. They went out, they made changes, they brought in new line coaches on both sides of the ball. They have brought in new players, but they also lost Sean Weatherspoon once again to injury. What are the expectations for the Falcons this year?
I think the expectations are that the Falcons are going to turn it around. They might not be, the best team in the NFC South right now. They're probably at best a 10-6 or 12-4 team, depending on what goes on with the games versus the Saints. But I think their offense, once they get everybody healthy on the same page, they'll be fine. They did lose Sam Baker for the season, but I'm not as worried about it because I think Jake Matthews I honestly think he's an upgrade over Sam Baker. I think he was playing the wrong side to begin with.
Yeah.
And then I think Lamar Holmes is a better player at right tackle than Sam Baker is at left tackle. So overall, I do think they're going to end up being better along the offensive line this year. They've got a great right guard that they brought in John Asamoah. They've got a really good center that they've been developing for about 5 years now, Joe Hawley, who finally is going to get a shot to start and deserves a shot to start because he's nasty. He's basically Todd McClure Part 2.
Oh, yeah? Okay.
So if he plays 10 years starting, it wouldn't shock me. He's a very good center who deserves to start. I'll put it that way. And then after Hawley, there's good old Justin Blaylock, who's been the starting left guard since 2007. And, I mean, he's not a Pro Bowler, but he's not below average either. He's an average to above average left guard every single year in, year out, model of consistency, and a guy that every NFL team really wants to have.
Yeah, I agree with you. You never want to see injuries, and I'm sorry that Sam Baker was injured, but I do think that Jake Matthews is that pure left tackle. His father, Bruce Matthews, longtime Oiler and Tennessee Titan, and Hall of Famer, very well deserved. Played every position on the offensive line. But as a rookie, Jake Matthews, he's the left tackle. I think he is that in that pure left tackle mold, and I think that he'll do a lot better there. I think that their offensive line is going to be a lot better. Do you think that their running game, Steven Jackson is healthy. They've got Jaquez Rogers. Is that how you pronounce his first name? Jaquez Rogers, and and some other guys. What are your expectations for the running game this year?
I think that Devontae Freeman, Jaquez Rogers, and Steven Jackson, as long as Jackson's healthy, are going to split the snaps 3 ways. The name to watch out for would be Antone Smith. He should get about 5 or 6 carries or touches a game, depending on how they feel like using him. He's a horrible pass blocker. So if he goes in, he's either there as a decoy or there as he's the guy getting the ball. But Antone Smith, Devontae
I wondered about him.
The speed group.
Yeah, I wondered about him. You and I had talked about him before, and I wondered if his roster spot was in jeopardy. But you think he's going to make the team?
He's such a good gunner that they're not going to cut him.
Okay.
He's just a horrible pass blocker. If he was anywhere good at pass blocking, he probably would have started by now.
Oh, yeah? Okay. Yeah, he is a talented runner. You got a chance to see him a little bit last year. What about Freeman? He's a young guy. Is he coming along in pass protection? Do you think that he's going to get significant snaps, or is he going to have to work his way into the lineup?
I think if Steven Jackson goes down, Freeman's going to end up being the starter. His pass blocking looks fine. I haven't seen any issues so far in preseason. But obviously you're going to see different looks when you get to the regular season. And I think the Falcons are showing him those looks in practice and saying, hey, this is how you do it. This is how you do it. This is how you do it. And it's just he's got to beat it into his skull, basically, because he's getting so much stuff thrown at him from so many different ways. He's one of those guys that if you give him a full season and then throw him out there, he's probably going to be better that way, as like a change of pace this year, a starter next. And I could see if Jackson goes down, Rodgers and Freeman doing a full 50-50 split.
That's, it's a little bit unusual for a rookie to come in and be immediately very good in pass protection. It's very good news for the Atlanta Falcons if he is doing well in that capacity. On the flip side, for the Tennessee Titans, their rookie running back, Bishop Sankey, very talented player, low center of gravity. I got a chance to watch him a lot in training camp. Watched a lot of film on him. He's going to be a very good player in the league, but he is still learning to pass protect, and that's an area that he's got to get a little bit better. You can tell that he's already improved from college. You can tell he's been working very hard at it, but then on top of that, he's got some fumbling issues. This is a big game, I think, for rookie Bishop Sankey. He has got to hang on.
Issues in college, though.
What? I'm sorry?
He didn't have those issues in college.
He did not. He did not. He didn't have fumbling issues. It's very much kind of a new thing, but it's been prevalent. It's not a situation where it's just been a fumble here and there. It's been a situation where it started in training camp. The last week of training camp, that Tuesday, he fumbled twice in one day and had to run laps for it because he'd been fumbling before. And then he fumbled in the game against the New Orleans Saints. And he wasn't the only one. I mean, the Titans should have won that game. They turned the ball over 5 times. It should have only been 3 lost fumbles. They inexplicably called a bounce-off interception from veteran Derek Hagan a fumble. I still haven't figured out why they've called that a fumble, but anyway, they turned the ball over 5 times. He was one of them. Sean Green fumbled on a play where he was injured. Sean Green does not have fumbling issues. I'm not concerned about him. He looks to be okay, from that injury. So, you don't want to give it too much attention because that you want to put the rookie in a situation where he's like, where it becomes a mental thing. But it's been enough of an issue that it's being talked about. And head coach Ken Wisenhunt came out in support of Bishop Sankey, and I know that he is working hard to correct that. You can tell that he is very much a hard worker because he's dramatically improved. He's still got a long way to go on his pass protection, but he's definitely a lot better than when he was, just coming into the league. So you're going to see a heavy dose of Dexter McCluster. You're going to see, I believe Sean Green is playing. He was practicing. He looks to be okay. Jackie Battle is going to get some playing time in the run game. I'm really curious to see what the Titans are going to do once the regular season starts. They've got a lot of options in their backfield. Jackie Battle is probably going to dress on game day because he is, from all appearances, going to be a halfback / fullback for them. And so it looks like they're going to carry. They're going to have 5 really, if you count Leon Washington, who probably won't see any touches actually at running back, but will be the kickoff return guy and maybe return some punts too, along with Dexter McCluster. So, what has the Falcons' run defense been looking like so far, Scott?
It's been looking much improved from where it was last year. The defense as a whole, honestly, has been looking just way better than it was last year.
Well, they were pretty bad last year. It almost had to go up, right?
It almost had to, but the run defense itself was a huge hole, and they had arguably the worst run defense in the league last year. And just going based on Pro Football Focus rankings, they're one of the top 3 this year.
Oh,
They've
that's
got
good.
Yeah, they've got some of the better run defenders: John Babineau, John Massaquoi, Cliff Matthews, Travian Robertson. These are guys that are probably going to be making the roster. Jacquez Smith might be on the practice squad. Tyler Starr is probably going to be on the roster. Soliai is the starting nose tackle. Anger is probably going to be the backup linebacker. Kamal Ishmael and Sean Baker are probably making the roster. Malachi Goodman's making the roster. Hageman, Moore, like all these guys just went down. That's all the guys with positive grades. And there's only very few guys with negative grades, and a lot of it has to do with they misplayed 1 play here, 2 plays there, 1 play there. So it's not like they're horrible.
Now, Massaquoi, he's your second-year player, right? He was drafted last offseason?
He was drafted in 2012, but he didn't really play as a rookie.
Okay.
He's got a ton of potential, and I would love to see him, embrace it and really fill out his. The way I look at potential is it's like a cup. Right now it's about half full for him. I'd like to see him fill up the glass, become this great pass rusher, be a guy who can do 17, 18 sacks a year regularly. That's his long-term potential. This year, I think he might get 10 sacks, but I think he's going to be a much better all-around player.
There was a lot of discussion about the Falcons going to a 3-4. It sounds to me like they are running pretty much what most teams do anymore, and that's a hybrid system. No team really runs a true 3-4 defense. You're going to see a variety of defensive fronts. What are your thoughts on that?
The Falcons were never going to run a 3-4 defense in the first place. They never claimed, hey, it's a full 3-4, hey, it's this, hey, it's this. It was Mike Nolan's going to run what Mike Nolan wants to run. It's going to be mainly out of the nickel packages. He's going to mainly really run 2-4-5 and 3-3-4 or 3-3-5 packages because those are his favorites.
Okay.
So you're going to see a lot of Tyson Jackson, Rashid Hageman, Soliai, Corey Peters, and I want to say Malachi Goodman. Those are going to be the main guys rotating in on the defensive line.
Are they going to use a nose tackle?
They are, probably most of the time. But it's not going to be a nose tackle in the traditional sense. It's not going to be a guy who sits right over the center as zero technique. Mm-hmm. Nolan's never really used a zero technique. It might be used sparingly, like 3 or 4 plays a game, but he'll mainly use a 3-1-5 style alignment.
Yeah.
Weak side 3 tech, that's probably going to be Jonathan Babineau. Strong side 1 tech, that's probably going to be Paul Soliai. And then a strong side 5 tech is going to be Tyson Jackson. Probably off Tyson Jackson's side as a strong outside guy, it's going to be Corey Bierman. Inside, you're going to have Warlow and Bartu, or Warlow and Shembo. And then on the other side, you're going to have Jonathan Massaquoi, O.C. Menioria, a couple other guys kind of rotating. And then on the 4-man, just 4-man rush, line up and get them. The package that you're probably going to see is O.C., Massaquoi, Jonathan Babineau, and Rashid Hageman. And if it's not Babineau, it's going to be Malachi Goodman.
Jonathan Babineau is still getting it done. He's been in the league for a long time. What is his contract status, and what do you think his long-term prospects are for the Falcons?
I think he's on his final contract. He's got this year and then 2 years after it, so he's on a 3-year deal, $9 million deal. Not really a cap buster kind of contract. The Falcons could get out of it if they really wanted to, but he signed for enough money to where it's like, yeah, he's gonna make his he's still making a good amount of money, but it's not like he's breaking the bank either. He's not a $5 million a year guy. He's a $3 million a year last contract with the team kind of guy. Just like Roddy White has a $6 million a year last contract with the team kind of guy.
Well, that sounds like a win-win though for everybody.
Oh yeah.
Kind of the ideal situation. Do you think that he will retire as a Falcon?
Oh yeah. If he wanted to if he wanted to go elsewhere, he would have this offseason because he had offers for a little bit more money from other teams, but he decided to stay in Atlanta. And it was because, one, he loves Atlanta, but two, why go elsewhere when you've already got all your roots down and the money's not much different? And he saved his money throughout the years. Most of his money, if he's, quote unquote, squandered it, is going to charities because he's really big in the United Way.
Okay. Well, I like to see guys retire and do that with the teams that they've been with the longest, and so it's good to me to hear that because it's becoming more and more rare for guys to do that. I just did an article about Michael Strahan, his 15-year career with the New York Giants. I don't think that's going to be it's going to be very difficult for a defensive player to replicate that.
It really will. Few guys stay with the same kind of team for years. Jonathan Babineau is the only Falcon who's still with the team, who's been with the team for over a decade and has only played with the Falcons. The next closest player on that defense is William Moore. No one else. You've got a bunch of guys who were drafted by the team. Oh, and Croy Bierman. But outside of Bierman and Moore and Corey Peters, the entire defense was basically drafted or signed by Thomas Dimitroff. Outside of Josh Wilson and Dwight Lowery and Paul Soliai, outside of those three guys, the starting defense wasn't even really anything but drafted by Thomas Dimitroff.
We talked a little bit about the offense this morning. I want to talk with you a little bit more about Matt Ryan. The struggles last season weren't entirely his fault. I mean, the offensive line struggled. He took a lot of sacks. It was a combination of things. Do you think that he's going to really bounce back in a big way, though?
Oh, yeah. I think he's going to have a 5,000-yard, 35-touchdown season. I think he's finally got an offensive line that understands how to pass block, which, as crazy as it sounds, has been the biggest hole of his entire career. If his offensive lines throughout the year could have pass blocked, he probably would have already thrown for 5,000 yards. He's that good.
Well, he's ranked number 55. I'm looking at the ESPN blog. He's ranked number 55 in the NFL according to the poll that they took, and that poll was conducted among 90 people with NFL ties. Do you think that that's a reasonable rank for him?
Yeah, I mean, until he throws for 5,000 yards and 35 touchdowns and wins a Super Bowl, I don't see any way he goes up.
All right, well, let's talk about your second-year tight end, Levine Toilolo. Did I do it? Did I get it?
Oh, yeah, you got it.
All right. I am determined to get his name right because I'm a big fan, and I was actually a little bit befuddled that he didn't get a little bit more attention last year. But Tony Gonzalez has retired now. It looks like he's the guy, and there's going to be, maybe someone alongside of him. What do you think that he's going to be their number one tight end target? And secondly, if that's yes, who is competing to be the second guy beside him?
I mean, Toilolo, that's his job. He was drafted to be, hey, you're the starter after Tony's gone. You're going to spend the year just soaking up as much as you can from Tony Gonzalez. Atlanta had the perfect plan of, hey, we know it's Tony's last year. Tony knows it's his last year. Let's draft a guy who's as close to what he is right now that we can and throw him out there. And draft a guy that's personality-wise the closest thing to Tony Gonzalez that we can. And that's what they did with Toilolo. Because personality-wise, he's one of those guys that's first one in after Matt Ryan. He's the last one out before Matt Ryan because no one leaves before, or no one goes in before, no one leaves after Ryan. He's like,
oh, yeah?
He lives at the facility. But yeah, Toilolo's there. He's always there late, catching passes, figuring out the routes. If he has questions, he's asking them, getting them answered. He's got arguably the best work ethic out of anybody on the team outside of the quarterback, which is a huge thing.
Yeah, it really is. And the other part of that, and you and I talked a little bit about this before we got started, still soaking up knowledge and a lot of things from Tony Gonzalez. They're still hanging out. They play basketball together. I love that Tony Gonzalez has taken this young player, and it's not surprising at all if you know Tony Gonzalez, that he's taken this young player under his wing, and he's determined to make sure that he's successful, isn't he?
Oh yeah, he definitely is. The Falcons really wanted Toilolo to be the guy, so they made sure that he and Tony Gonzalez got along. It wouldn't surprise me if Gonzalez was one of the guys who went in and basically helped scout him. Like, hey, as long as I get along with this guy on a personal level, we'll be fine.
Mm-hmm. All right, so I guess this morning 6'7", but he is 6'8", a very tall target, going to be an incredibly hard matchup for a lot of defensive backs in the league, even though the new thing is to draft taller defensive backs. Most teams still have guys who, 5'11", 6'1", somewhere around there. Do you think that he's going to see the bulk of the red zone targets?
I think the red zone targets are going to be split up pretty evenly, especially with Roddy White and Julio Jones back. It makes it tough for teams to defend when you've got White, you've got Jones, you've got potentially Levine Toilolo, and then you've got backups at tight end like Mickey Schuler, who's also 6'5", or Barry Pasco, who's 6'6", guys who are 260-plus pounds all the way around.
Are those guys tight ends?
Oh, yeah, Pasco and Schuler are tight ends. Schuler's more of that H-back move F kind of tight end, where Pasco is more of that, like, hey, I'm a big fatty who's going to block you and throw you to the ground.
Do the Falcons use a fullback, or are they more of an H-back team?
They do use a fullback in Patrick DeMarco, but if he sees 150 to 200 snaps, it's a lot in a year. It means they're running the ball real well, and he's in there for – if he's in there, it's for running plays, basically. I just don't see DeMarco having a huge year in any facet, snaps or anything. His main value is going to be as a special teams player.
Let's talk a little bit about your secondary, and then I'll turn to some of the Titans players. And that's my clever way of segueing into the Titans' young wide receivers. But the Falcons secondary, what can we expect there? Who's going to be starting and who's competing?
Well, the cornerbacks are pretty obvious. It's last year's first-round and second-round pick. Desmond Trufant and Robert Alford are going to be the instant starters there. No questions asked.
They had pretty good rookie seasons.
They did. Alford got burned a little bit. He's probably going to get burned a little bit this year, but I see him like a Bobby Taylor type. Early in his career, he's gonna take his lumps, but once he finally gets it down, he'll be a multi-year Pro Bowler.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And Trufant's more of that Troy Vincent, like steps right in, Pro Bowl caliber for his entire career, and then retires one day just because he feels like it. So I see. I mean, that's kind of what happened with him. And if you've got both of them on the team, it's not a bad comparison. Bobby Taylor and Troy Vincent were some of the best corners in the league for a couple of years. And then in the slot, you got Josh Wilson, Robert McClain, Javier Arenas all competing. And then there's another guy who's a rookie this year, Ricardo Allen, who's got some solid – he's going to be solid depth, if not just the 53rd man on the roster who just kind of sticks around. Well, safety, you've got long-term option William Moore, probably going to be the leader of that secondary, leader of the defense with Paul Warlow. And then at free safety, you've got Dwight Lowery, Kamal Ishmael, and Desmond Salward still all in a pretty heated battle for the starting spot.
I was going to ask you about the safeties. They are going to face a Titans receiving core that includes Kendall Wright, who's entering his third year. Nate Washington, longtime veteran. I think that he's entering his ninth season, maybe. Very quietly, almost topped 1,000 yards last year. Was really, I think, a little bit underrated. I think he only scored like 2 touchdowns. And second-year wide receiver Justin Hunter, who had a fairly unremarkable first game, got a little bit in the coach's doghouse against the Green Bay Packers, was forced to wear a Jag jersey, which I still am not happy about, but just a guy that stood for just a guy, really broke out against the Saints with 2 touchdowns, 2 amazing touchdowns, jump balls in the end zone. Do you think that they will pay special attention to him? Who do you think is going to match up against Justin Hunter, and how do you expect the Falcons secondary to handle that?
Well, I think Hunter's mainly an outside receiver. I really liked what he did when he was at Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
Looked like a taller version of Roddy White is what I saw when I saw him play. So, long time Pro Bowl potential there. I don't understand why he's not starting over Nate Washington, other than maybe run blocking, because it doesn't make sense to me. He's a better player all the way around than Nate Washington is.
I think come day one, when they travel to the Kansas City Chiefs, if he shows out this weekend, he'll be on the field.
Well, it also depends on where Hunter lines up. Atlanta doesn't really flip their corners too often. At least they didn't last year, and they haven't been in the preseason. They might do it during the regular season. But I think this week, if he's on the left side of the field, he'll see a lot of Desmond Trufant. If he's on the right side of the field, he'll see a lot of Robert Alford. If he's in the slot, he's going to see whoever's in the slot, whether it's Trufant, Alford, Wilson, McLean, any of those guys.
I'm trying to think where he lined up. I believe it was. You've seen him on both sides of the field. And,
I've seen him on both sides, for sure.
Yeah, and especially, last year he was, I believe, on the right side. But this year it seems like he's lining up a lot because, Kenny Britt's gone. And I will tell you this. If you read anything that I've written, you'll know this anyway. The Titans, it's definitely a new era in Tennessee Titans football. You saw them consistently run 3 and 4 wide receiver sets in training camp. I even saw them line up 5 wide with Dexter McCluster split out, but he actually ended up motioning back into the backfield. I was like, ooh, this is exciting. They're running a lot of bunch sets. It's really exciting to see them finally getting away from Fisher Ball and really using the talent that they have. They're splitting tight ends out. You're going to see Delaney Walker and Taylor Thompson, and maybe even Craig Stevens split out a bit. You're definitely going to see Dexter McCluster split out. So they're going to get all of their guys involved in one way or the other in the passing game. And I think it's going to be, if they can successfully do this, and a lot of that depends on whether or not Jake Locker, who I'm getting ready to turn to, whether or not Jake Locker stays healthy, or whether Zach Mettenberger is able to continue to build on what he has already started, because you're seeing the talent there on the field with him. He's still doing some rookie things which you would completely expect. I think that he's on track to be exactly what you would expect, from a guy taken, in his first year and coming in as a rookie who's going to sit back and learn. What do you think that, and with Jake Locker, you always have to account a little bit for his running ability. What do you think that the Falcons are thinking as they look? They're going to see Jake Locker at least in the first half. Are they concerned about his running ability, or what are they going to try to do to limit that effectiveness?
if the Falcons game plan, which they haven't been doing for the preseason, I do think they're gonna kind of have the mush rush package they had when they played Kaepernick back in 2012, but they're gonna have the right personnel to run it with. They're gonna have Tyson Jackson, who's pretty wide and athletic, and then you're gonna have Rashid Hageman out there, who's pretty wide and athletic. Probably Jonathan Babineau, same kind of thing. And then have Massaquoi and Bierman just kind of set the edge if they run that package. If they don't run that package, I think they'll just let them run wild like they let Ryan Fitzpatrick run wild last week.
Yeah.
Better let a slow quarterback with his legs.
I think that's a good point. Most teams are not really game planning, though you're seeing some teams that are. The Saints definitely ran some things that you were like, yeah, that's not vanilla. I mean, that's definitely a special play. You saw Kenny Vaccaro come in unblocked on a blitz, on a safety blitz, and that's how Charlie Whitehurst got hurt. And I'm not saying that they did anything wrong. Now, obviously, they did. It was completely. The Titans have got to get a little bit better about picking up those things. Hopefully, it was a learning experience for them. But I don't know that you're going to see the Titans really do anything. I'm trying to think back, and since you said that, I'm trying to think back. I don't think that we've seen any 4 wide receiver sets in the preseason. You definitely saw it in training camp. So they could be very, very vanilla too, but they are at the point in their preseason where they're starting to install things. First cuts are coming up next week, which is the next thing that I want to talk about. I think that you could see them maybe open things up just a little bit more, particularly as you're going to see Jake Locker play. And we all know Jake Locker has yet to complete a full year, starting in the NFL. It makes a lot of sense for them to get him some good playing time, maybe running a few of the things that they want to run. Before we talk about cuts, let's talk a little bit about special teams and the return game. How have the Falcons special teams been performing in the preseason, and who do you expect is going to be returning for them?
They've been looking awful, and they did sign Devin Hester this offseason, so I think he's going to be the return man for both punt and kick returns. That's obviously his best asset. He's not great in the offense, but I do think he's going to have some potential there. But I think his complete role on the team will be kick returner, punt returner, couple screen passes here and there throughout the year.
Yeah, the Titans have not been looking at all that well in their special teams either. In fact, after their first preseason game, they did not look good at all against the Packers. You saw them devote a little bit more extra time to special teams. You're seeing them give some guys, Mark Mariani, who is definitely on the bubble to make the team, has been getting a lot of playing time. I shouldn't say experience because he's done that when he was healthy, when he first came into the league. I don't know that Mark Mariani is going to make this team. And I'm really curious to see what the Titans do in their return game. Obviously, they've got a very experienced guy in Leon Washington who can do both. They've got Dexter McCluster, who went to the Pro Bowl as a returner. Very dangerous punt return guy. We have not seen them do that yet in a preseason game. So could this be the game that you see the Titans get the guys who are probably going to be the ones to do that job going? I don't know. That is something that I'm going to be looking for to see who's going to be out there on coverage, because their coverage teams have been really bad. I think they were a little bit, maybe.
They have been.
Marginally. Huh?
They've been pretty bad.
Yeah. They might have been just a little bit better against the Saints, but it would have been marginally so. They've got to get a lot better, and so I think that's definitely an area to watch. First cuts are coming up. I always hate cut day. I mentioned Mark Mariani. I don't know. He's a guy that's on the bubble. My prediction is that he does not make it. I don't know that. I think that Leon Washington is their guy, and Dexter McCluster is going to get some work there. There's some other guys who are going to be fighting for roster spots. Who's on the bubble in Atlanta that really needs to have a good game against the Titans to make the team?
I'd say Julian Jones is really on the bubble. I'd say Freddie Martino is really on the bubble. Jeremy Ebert. I mean, these are guys who could be cut next week, next couple of days kind of thing. James Stone, really on the bubble. Same with Adam Rapopoulos. Neither one of these guys are great. They were both college free agents, and they've both looked awful throughout the preseason. I can't see the Falcons keeping two fullbacks past this week. I also don't think they're going to keep – it's either Jerome Smith or Josh Vaughn who's going to be gone this next week too. So that's probably 7 or 8 of your cuts. On the defensive line, I don't see any way Theo Agnew makes a pass this week. I don't see any way Dante Rumpf makes a pass this week. I really don't see any way Walker May, because I haven't even seen him in games, or Noza Igwe really make it past this week either. Darren Drakeford was kind of one of those guys that was just brought in for a couple weeks. Same with Tyrell Johnson. I don't see him lasting too long either. And then Devontae Glover, right, hasn't looked great. The Falcons cut down to 75 should be pretty easy. There might be a couple surprises, but for the most part, it's going to be guys who just haven't seen any playing time. I could even see them cutting Jeff Matthews, who hasn't seen any playing time.
Oh, yeah.
Also have like 4 or 5 snaps. The quarterback from Cornell.
Okay. Do you think he'll end up on the practice squad, or will they just cut bait?
The Falcons are pretty good about who they pick for the practice squad, and I do think Jeff Matthews could be one of those guys. If I had to pick a 10-man practice squad from guys that are currently on the roster, I'd say Geraldo Boldevine and Tremaine Thompson would be the first two. They're wide receivers. They're both Boldevine 6'4", 240, or not 240, 220. Real quick, but very raw as a receiver. Tremaine Thompson is like a quick, fast, just kind of speed receiver. I also think they'd have, if they could, Harlan Gunn on it. If not, I think Ryan Schrader could be a guy who ends up on the practice squad there too. And I think James Stone could be a practice squad guy. I'm not 100% sure, though.
Now, James Stone, that's the former Vol, right?
It's a former Vol. He hasn't looked good at all. I didn't really like him when he was at Tennessee either. I didn't think he was draftable. I'm just not seeing – I didn't really see a ton of talent out of him for the NFL.
I thought that he underperformed. He looked really good. What year was it that I think when he took over.
Sophomore year, he did look good, and then he just tapered off.
He really did. I completely agree with that. For the Titans, first cuts may not be a huge thing. I meant to mention this when we were talking about special teams. Get a little bit of a kicker battle going on. I think that Travis Coons, undrafted free agent kicker, is going to get the kicking job. I'm not sure that the Titans kicker of the 2014 season is on their roster right now, but I would put Coons as the favorite to take that spot. And so obviously Macon Bonani, who is a Brazilian kicker, is is one of the
name.
What's that?
What a great name.
I know, right? Yeah, he has got a leg too. I mean, he can kick the ball, to China. I mean, he just couldn't. But if he was aiming for China, he'd hit Vietnam or someplace. I mean, just does not have the accuracy. And so, and I like him. He was in camp last year. This is his second year being in camp with the Tennessee Titans, and I think that they like him. I think that they would have wanted him to win the job. And I think his accuracy has gotten maybe a little bit better. But when he missed an extra point And he was one of like 6 kickers to miss an extra point in the preseason so far under these new rules, which I hate. But he did miss that extra point, and you were like, wow, So I think that I don't. Could he possibly take, slide past Travis Kuhn? I think that Kuhn would have to look really badly, and he would have to be extremely good. So, he's a guy. I mentioned Mark Mariani. A guy that has shown a lot of talent. That's probably not going to make the 53 just because of numbers, but a guy that I really like and I think is going to end up on the practice squad is a running back from Kentucky Christian and his name is Antonio Andrews. He is
Western Kentucky?
Western Kentucky. I'm sorry, Western Kentucky. He is kind of like Bishop Sankey. He has a low center of gravity.
Not super quick though.
He's not super quick, but he's a little bit shiftier than what you think, and he has pretty good vision. I think that he'll probably end up on their practice squad. They've got some young wide receivers. Jazz Reynolds is one. I think that he could possibly end up on the practice squad. Maybe Isaiah Williams. 2 guys who aren't practice squad eligible who are fighting for the back end of the wide receiver spot, Derek Hagan and Brian Robisky. I think that battle is just too close to call. I don't think that Derek Hagan did himself any favors with the bounce-off fumble/interception last week, but I don't know. He's looked extremely good and has been making plays, and I don't know that it hurt him all that bad, but I do think that both of those guys, this is the game to make a push. If they're going to be looking at those 2 guys very hard because it's extremely close. I thought Derek Hagan had the edge until that turnover, and then now I'm not so sure. So I guess we'll see. There's some guys in the secondary. I talked about Damian Stafford this morning. He's not in danger. He is I think virtually a lock to make the roster. I would be shocked if he doesn't. I'm not so sure that he's not going to take the 3rd safety spot. I love George Wilson, former Arkansas Razorback, Buffalo Bill, a guy who converted from wide receiver to defensive back and has been a really good player in the league. And there's nothing against him. He's a good player. He's still very good. It's just that Damian Stafford is having an amazing training camp. He's having an amazing preseason. He's a very exciting young player. I think that you're going to see him play significantly Saturday night. So he's a guy to watch. Khalid Wooten, he was a guy that I was really high on last year. He's in that same mold. Been playing more safety. He played cornerback more last year. He's been playing more safety this year.
Really? He's a great fit.
He is going to have to really make a push. Marcus Huff, their 4th round draft pick. He's going to make the squad. I think. I don't see them cutting bait this early, but I think that
free safety though.
I'm sorry.
They should put him at free safety. He looked really good there at the Senior Bowl.
Huff, he's been playing corner.
I know I'm saying, but he should be playing safety. He's a much better safety.
A lot of people think that, and I know most people listed him as that. He played 3 years at corner and was very good at corner, 2 years at corner and was very good, 2 or 3, I can't remember now. I'm going off the top of my head. But having that versatility is good. And I will tell you, at first I was like, this guy looks lost in coverage, but he really stepped it up, and he's doing a lot better. He's doing a whole lot better. Will they move him to safety? I don't know. I think they've got numbers there. I think that they're more concerned about the cornerback situation. I really do. I think for right now, he's going to do what Michael Griffin did his first year in the league, and that's play cornerback, try to. Of course, Michael Griffin started, and he's not going. Huff isn't going to start. He's going to make earn his keep, earn his bread on special teams. I think he's been playing gunner. I'm not sure exactly what he's been doing on special teams, but he's very fast, and he's a very, very good player, very willing player on special teams. He understands. Another guy, another draft pick that you're going to see, I think, because I want to talk a little bit about the defensive line. Mike Martin, Antonio Johnson, both injured. Mike Martin, a former third-round draft pick. You can't make the club from the tub. I don't know that they cut bait with him. I don't think that Antonio Johnson is going to make the team.
They'd put Martin as a injured reserve because they like him. They really like Martin.
Yeah, that's what I was getting ready to say. I think that he'll probably end up on the injured reserve, and they'll let him recover and recuperate. He looked good before he got injured, but that's going to give an opportunity for Daquan Jones, who at the very beginning of training camp was very much a rookie. I mean, you could tell he was still getting acclimated. He's really kind of come on, though, and I'm anxious to see him play Saturday night, see how much playing time he gets. He's very intriguing guy. And then turning, the two guys that are playing on the outside, Derek Morgan is really starting to settle in to that outside linebacker role. I think you're going to see him. They list him as a linebacker and a defensive end. I think that both he and Sean Phillips are going to play that dual role, where they will stand up at times and they'll put their hand in the dirt at times. Inside, it looks to be Zach Brown, if Zach Brown can stay out of the doghouse, and Wesley Woodyard. And then you've got, on the other side, you've got Cam Wembley. He's going to be the right outside linebacker. And then behind him is Akeem Ayers. So they've got their linebacking rotation going on. The guys that I'm just not sure about, because they've got numbers there, Patrick Bailey, who's been a special teams stalwart, they are really high on him, but they've also got some other guys. Will he make the squad? Will he get some significant playing time Saturday night? I think that's something to watch for. Foku, who is a guy that was their middle linebacker, last year. Now that Colin McCarthy is injured, and he's not going to make. He's if they haven't already done, and I haven't checked his status in a while, he'll be on injured reserve. He'll get released with an injury settlement. In my opinion, they're not going to hang on to him. But Foku could, I think, end up in that mix. But he's also competing with a guy that I think that they're very high on. You saw him get some significant playing time against the New Orleans Saints, and that's Avery Williamson. So their linebacking rotation is going to be something to really watch Saturday night. I'm curious to see what they do there. Scott, did you scout Avery Williamson? What are your thoughts on him?
When he was at Kentucky, I thought he was okay. As that Ted, I don't know what the terminology that I really don't know what the terminology that that Horton uses, but as that Ted, how you have like Will, Sam, Mike, and Ted. Or actually, hold on, I got these backwards. Mike's more of a roamer, and then Ted. So you've got the Will on the weak side, Sam on the strong side, the Mike, the Ted, that strong inside guy.
Okay, there you go.
So the Will, the Sam, so weak side, strong side.
Mm-hmm.
Mike, more of that roaming linebacker, and then the Ted, the strong side, kind of a thumper.
Mm-hmm.
As a Ted linebacker, I think he'd be a good fit. I think he's going to be that thumper, that inside presence that's going to be, just busting heads. Is he better than Wesley Woodyard at that job? Probably. I would start Wesley Woodyard as more the Mike, the roamer, than the thumper.
Wesley Woodyard's going to wear the defensive Mike. He is virtually, I had a chance to talk to him about this. He is going to be virtually an every down linebacker, at least starting out. And so you're gonna that is what they are doing there, and he's playing that left inside linebacker spot, and so the right inside linebacker spot is Zach Brown. And Avery Williamson, I'm trying to remember where I think I saw him play both of those spots. They had him play both of them. Foku played behind Zach Brown at that right inside linebacker spot. Bailey, I don't remember exactly where they had him. He's not a guy who plays a lot of line. He really is a special teamer. I'm trying to think who the other linebackers they have. But those are the main ones, and those are the ones who are going to be really in, they've got Tig Willard. I don't think Willard's going to make the team. Xavier Gooden. I've not mentioned Xavier Gooden. I did not think that he was going to be a very good fit for this new defense. I was wrong. He has looked extremely good on the inside. He is interchanging with Zach Brown, much like he did in 2013. So I think that he's also a guy to take a look at. And so yeah, we went a little bit longer than I expected, but it's always so much fun talking to Scott. Scott, before we get out of here, give me your prediction. I know that you think that the Falcons are going to win. Do you want to give me a score?
We'll say 24-21. I do think the Falcons are a better team overall, but it is going to be a lot closer throughout the game than people think. The Titans have a great offensive line. They've got good, solid receivers. They've got a good tight end. They got a solid run game. The only real question that I have is Locker staying healthy for the year. Otherwise, I think that offense is going to be nasty, like really good nasty. And that defense is going to take a while to get into that scheme, but once they get it, they'll get it. And Horton's always had great success his first year, his second year. I'd love to see him have 3 years with the same defense, more than that, just because I think he would be an excellent long-term defensive coordinator, but he deserves a head coaching job.
Yeah. I like Ray Horton, too. His defenses start a little bit slow. That's the only concern. I think it's going to take 2 or 3 games into the season before they really start to gel. I think that the Titans are going to win. My final score prediction is 28-24. Just because I think that they want to. I think that they want to show their fans that they're better than what they've shown thus far. I know Scott's got to go. Scott, thanks again for joining me. Before you head out, and I know you're excited about some weekend football, tell everybody where they can find you.
You can find me at Draft Falcon. You can find me at Draft Falcons or at Scott Carasik, and you can also find all of my work at Bleacher Report under the Falcons section.
All right. Thanks again. You can find me on Twitter at Sports by Sharona. NGSC Sports. Get familiar. I'm going to be tweeting out the new link to the website, The Extra Point. We come to you live every Friday night, so stay tuned in. We'll be back next week with a different format, with a different show. But be sure to also catch me 7:30 Yahoo Sports Monday through Friday, 10 o'clock a.m. Central Standard Time. Game over with Fast Eye and Sharona. Happy Friday night. Go football.